A hairstylist from Florida is stabbed to death in a car, and the man accused of the crime makes a bold claim when approached by police. I'll tell you about the case of Hailey Hosford and how a friend is remembering her and where her accused killer is now. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Hailey Hosford was a beautiful 27-year-old woman. She had a family and friends who loved her, and she was working hard to build her business. She worked as a hairstylist and advertised it on TikTok. But all of that came to an end in the early morning hours of May 28th in Sunrise, Florida. Sunrise is a community outside of Fort Lauderdale. An arrest affidavit says that Hailey Hosford was with a male friend when they pulled into a parking garage at the retreat at Sawgrass just after 1:30 a.m. The affidavit says that Hosford and her friend were in the garage. They were in a rental car that was registered to the male friend. Security cameras helped piece together what happened next. At 1:38 a.m., the affidavit says that the suspect enters from the north end of the garage and walks toward the victim vehicle. The suspect in the video is a heavy-set black male with an afro wearing a gray shirt with a white stripe across the front, red-orange shorts, black sandals, and black socks. A metallic object is visible in his right hand, reflecting light. He passes along the passenger side of the vehicle and momentarily exits the camera view. Then a minute later at 1:39 a.m., the rear passenger side door opens. Hailey, whose name is redacted, begins to exit the vehicle just as the suspect approaches from the driver's side. She quickly re-enters the vehicle in an apparent attempt to hide. Before she can close the door, the suspect forces it open and initiates a physical altercation. A repeated stabbing motion is visible on video. 1 minute later, the detective wrote that the confrontation captured on video ended, and 1 minute after that, the man Hailey was with returns to the car. The affidavit states, the victim and the suspect re-entered the camera view and engaged in a violent confrontation. The suspect stabs the male in the throat, but the male is able to flee and escape. The suspect continues to pursue the male until both exit at the camera frames at the north end of the garage. Police arrived minutes later, and an officer talked with the victim who had a puncture wound to his throat, but he could still talk, and he told the officer that he was stabbed by someone he did not know, and that person went into the parking garage and took off. The victim told police he was afraid Hailey was still in his rented Mercedes and had been stabbed. About 10 minutes later, an officer found Hailey in the car, which was on the first floor of the parking garage. Hailey had been stabbed in the neck and the throat, and the officer found a steak knife on the front passenger seat of the car. Officers said they later found surveillance video that showed the suspect trying to drive that car out of the parking garage. The suspect was identified as Jackson Sagesse, who lived nearby. The affidavit states the suspect reappears in camera view and runs north toward building 3004, where he resides with his mother. It should be noted the times listed in this section are the actual times of occurrence. The timestamp on the video are approximately 13 minutes behind real time. While still collecting surveillance footage, I was informed that the employee from the retreat that was providing video access immediately recognized the suspect as a resident. Officers established a contact team outside the apartment, and the suspect surrendered a few minutes later when he was taken into custody without incident. The detectives said they found steak knives similar to the one found in the black Mercedes where Hailey was stabbed. It goes on to say that Sagesse agreed to talk to detectives after he was read his Miranda rights, and he said, I just killed someone and walked away. The affidavit states Sagesse provided vague and inconsistent answers. He claimed that he initially entered the parking garage to cross over to another building where he uses the gym. Upon seeing the victim's vehicle with its lights on, he considered calling the police, but realized he did not have his phone. Sagesse returned home to retrieve his phone and a kitchen knife, which he claimed he took for personal protection. Sagesse then offered additional information to detectives according to the affidavit. Sagesse stated that he walked past the vehicle again while heading to the gym and insisted that the male victim was not in the back seat during his first approach, a claim that is refuted by surveillance footage. He claimed that the knife remained in his pocket until the altercation began, although video shows a metallic object in his hand earlier. At one point, Sagesse stated he began murdering for self-defense. He repeatedly used the phrase self-defense, but was unable to articulate any threat or specific action that would have justified such force. Our content shows just how important personal safety is, and that's especially true when it comes to protecting your privacy online. You would be absolutely shocked at how much of your personal information is out there, like your address and phone number. Ever wonder why you get so many spam calls and emails? That's because this information, it's all public. That's where our sponsor Incogni comes in. It's a service that helps you take control of your online privacy by removing your personal data from data brokers, huge companies that sell and trade your info without your permission. Incogni actually found more than 50 brokers with my information, and here's the kicker. These data brokers, they have to remove you from their database if you ask them to. Now you're thinking, Angenette, who in the heck has time to contact a data broker? Well, that, again, is where Incogni comes in. They contact those companies for you to get your online safety back. You don't have to do a thing, and then they alert you after the request has been completed. After signing up, I get virtually no spam, so I highly recommend giving Incogni a try. Right now, anyone who uses code CRIMEFIX at incogni.com/crimefix gets 60% off. That's code CRIMEFIX at incogni.com/crimefix for 60% off an annual Incogni plan. So I want to bring in Philip Dubé. He works as court-appointed counsel in Los Angeles. So let's say this case happened in Los Angeles, this horrific murder. Philip Dubé could be tapped to represent this guy. Philip, your first thoughts upon reading about Hailey Hosford's murder. I mean, this poor woman is just hanging out with a friend, and she is horrifically and viciously attacked in a vehicle.
Yeah. And to me, just initially, it seemed like there's more to the story. Not that it's a defense to him, because certainly his life was not in any imminent danger. You don't just get to go up to somebody, even in a fit of rage over maybe a bad drug deal, or if you were rebuffed, anything like that, and just start slicing someone's throat. And unfortunately for this young man, and he is very young, I think he's 21, in the state of Florida, they do not recognize voluntary intoxication as a defense, period. That means even if he somehow was impaired by the effects of drugs or alcohol, Florida law just doesn't care. You cannot avail yourself to that defense. The only way around it is if he was involuntarily impaired. In other words, somebody slipped him something and he had no idea that whatever they gave him was going to make him psychotic and put him in a frenzied sort of fit of pique and just start cutting people. So I think the first thing that I would do with this man is have him seen by a psychiatrist to even make sure he's competent to proceed, and then determine whether or not he has some type of underlying mental disorder, and see if maybe there's an insanity type plea that can be worked out where he wouldn't get out. He would go to a state hospital and remain there unless and until he is ever restored to sanity.
You know, you're saying, there might be, more under the surface or what have you. He apparently was quoted as saying by the police, "I just killed somebody and walked away." There's no indication at all that he knew Hailey, that he knew her male friend who had gone into the apartment to get something. He lives in this complex with his mother, and she opens the door to get out of the car according to the documents, and then shuts it, and then he's opening it and starts attacking her according to everything they wrote in the affidavit. So I just am at a loss. He's actually walking with a knife, and then he's claiming self-defense. So I'm at a loss when this is all on video. You're talking about possible mental issues, which possibly, I think that's the best bet here, possibly go from what we know at this point. But this seems it seems like a pretty savage, brutal thing. There's no indication he knew these people or anything. This woman's in a car minding her own business.
Well, apparently it was reported after the stabbing that he's rummaging around and looking around outside the car for evidence. To me, what that suggests is maybe it was a prior drug deal or a pending drug deal gone bad. That's what it kind of sounded like. But then it didn't make sense when he says he's acting in self-defense. He doesn't give a lawful reason for even being there at the scene. So then what are you left with? Well, it could be a random thrill kill, that maybe he just wanted a car. He needed the wheels and thought by killing whoever was in the car, he would have access to a motor vehicle to get around. Or it could, in fact, be fueled by mental illness. For all we know, maybe he was delusional or psychotic at the time. Now, that would be a defense as long as it was not drug-induced, as long as it is rooted in a well-settled, pre-existing mental condition like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or schizoaffective disorder. He can avail himself to that defense, at least for purposes of insanity under Florida law. But I think a jury is going to have a hard time believing that he didn't understand what he was doing, that he could not appreciate the nature and scope of the consequences of his actions. So it's a tough sell. So I think what counsel is going to be doing after they get him seen by the psychiatrist is trying to settle the case for something less than life without parole.
And he didn't even appear at his bond hearing. I don't exactly know why, but there was a bond hearing. An attorney appeared on his behalf. He must have waived his appearance. Maybe the attorney determined we just don't need to bring him in here and have him on the Zoom and have him on TV. He's being held without bail. I mean, he's charged with premeditated murder and attempted murder. So they believe, this was planned. I'm assuming they believe this was premeditated and planned because he left, according to what we know, his mother's apartment with a knife. And the knife that was found on the passenger seat of the Mercedes matched. It looked like it came from a set of steak knives in his mother's apartment. So maybe you think you carry a steak knife for self-defense purposes or to protect yourself. And, he was allegedly going to the gym or whatever. But carrying a steak knife for protection seems very odd in the first place. This, to me, let's say maybe the prosecutor is going to argue that, no, this is just a guy that, as you said, possibly just walked out of his mom's apartment with a knife. He's wearing sandals and shorts and, whatever. And he just happened upon the first person he saw. And maybe it was just a thrill kill. He just wanted to see if he could do it.
Yeah. Or what I have seen many times over the years is where people will carjack or kill to get a car. That the value of human life falls short of the value of a used car. And I realize in this case, it was a higher end car. I think it was a Mercedes rental. And if that's the case and all he wanted was the car, he could have wielded the knife likely and said, "Get out, give me the keys." He didn't have to hurt the lady. But now he's going to have to face the music. If his defense is he didn't intend to kill, he didn't intend to hurt, he's going to lose that argument because of the number of times that she was stabbed and she was hit in the throat multiple times. I mean, the lady, I think, died a half hour after the assault. So this is, in my opinion, a dead bang loser from a defense standpoint.
Yeah, most certainly. It seems like a dead bang loser. It just seems like a very, very hard case. And he did try to drive that car away. I mean, they found the vehicle. They've got video of him trying to back it up. He must have had trouble somehow, driving it for some reason. They find it on the first floor of the parking garage with poor Hailey inside. Obviously, too, Philip, you've got a sympathetic victim here. This is a 27-year-old woman who is just out with her friend. It's a little after 1 a.m. in the morning. He goes into the apartment to get something, and she's just minding her own business. I mean, she's a young woman who was a hairstylist. She did like yoga retreats and stuff like that. Somebody who was loved by friends and family. She was just described by one friend in a news story as, a force of nature. She was a force, and she was a very vibrant young woman. You can see that from looking at her social media. So it's just very sad.
It is very sad. And unfortunately, for young people who might not be savvy or hip to the criminal element, it would never dawn on people, especially just a single woman, to be on the buddy system going to and from a car, never thinking in your wildest imagination that somebody might be there to end your life. But sometimes I think the message in these types of cases is at that hour, be on the buddy system. Don't leave yourself vulnerable. If you're in a car, close the door and keep it locked. If somebody knocks, don't answer. Don't roll down your window. If they insist, then just start that car and drive away. And unfortunately, this young lady did not have the presence of mind to do that. And he forced his way into the car and he killed her. It was just a terrible, senseless tragedy, likely over a car.
Yeah, it's an absolutely terrible, senseless tragedy. And I don't know, I kind of don't know. I mean, I don't know where he would even think he was going to take this car. And, that to me just seems like, let's say the motive here was the car, the theft of the car. Find another car. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a crime of opportunity, but let's say he wanted to steal a car. You've seen that somebody's opened the door and shut it potentially of the car. I mean, find something else. Not that anybody should be stealing. It's just, it makes no sense to me. And it does make me wonder, and even looking at his mugshot, whether or not there are some major mental health problems here. And just the fact that he tries to come up with all of these explanations about self-defense. It's clearly not his vehicle. And Hailey is probably smaller than he is and things like that. So, that's going to complicate the case as well. Just a purely innocent victim sitting there in a vehicle being attacked.
Yes. And he was a large, imposing guy. I think he weighed close to 300 pounds, and she is a petite, frail thing, and she just got overpowered, by somebody with a knife, So it's unfortunate. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you're going to be out and about at that hour, you got to anticipate the worst in our society. You never know who you're going to come upon. And I think the message is be on the buddy system or don't ever get out of that car.
You talked about resolving this case, through possibly a plea agreement. I know, it makes me wonder if it was, makes me wonder in Florida, they do pursue the death penalty sometimes. I'd have to look up the statute exactly to see what exactly would make it qualify. It kind of makes me wonder, though, if theft of the vehicle was part of this.
Absolutely. That's a carjack. Oh, yeah. Carjack for murder. That'll render you death eligible. It will out here in California. And I'd be pretty surprised if Florida is not in a court. So he is death eligible. Not to mention you have a second victim. You have a second victim who testified.
Who could have been killed.
Yeah. I mean,
just stabbed in the neck.
Yeah. But for how that knife landed, the man survived, And if this would have been a double homicide, a multiple victim homicide, he would have been death eligible and they would have sought death. And who knows, they still may. I think they have not made that filing determination yet. No. And there is no rush. There's ample time.
Yeah, there is definitely plenty of time. Well, we know that Hailey Hosford, that her family and friends came together for her funeral this week. Just a terrible, terrible loss to her family and friends. I can't even imagine being in their position and having to deal with a loss like this. 27 years old, beautiful, vibrant young woman, full of personality, full of life. And then something like this, just absolutely so horrific.
It's devastating. It goes against the natural order of things when parents survive their own children. For a child to predecease the parents is just so grievous and tragic, especially at that age, and especially when it wasn't natural causes. I don't want to, sort of support the idea that, well, if she would have had a terminal illness or something or some type of deadly illness, there was nothing that could be done about it anyway. No, but at least you could say that somebody didn't senselessly take her life. It was just her time to go in the universe, if you will. But for some random predator to come out there and just literally stab you up until you're dead, they're going to want swift justice. They are going to want justice, and you can bet that they are probably rallying support for the DA's office or the state's attorney to seek death against him.
It'll be interesting to see what decision is made on that front, because there was just zero reason for this to happen. Obviously, he's innocent until proven guilty. We will see what his defense is, but zero reason for this to happen. Philip Dubé, thank you so much. I do want to reiterate that Jackson Sagesse is being held without bail in the Broward County Jail. He faces 2 counts. Those are attempted murder and premeditated first-degree murder. Thank you so much. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.